I think that's the big question here, is that we know the organism typically associated with raw oysters is called Vibrio. And in terms of this Guillain Barré syndrome, can you assume that it would necessarily happen? Was this foreseeable, I think, is the legal term for it. And so I think that's the real question mark, because I do think when something happens, there is a liability, and he did get sick. The restaurant is responsible in that respect. I think the counter argument from the restaurant was that he had also eaten other meat sources such as lamb, which also can contain Campylobacter, which is a bacteria much more commonly associated with Guillain Barré. So it's just not typically associated with this organism. So they had many customers apparently who also got sick from Vibrio. They did accept the responsibility for that, but they don't feel necessarily that Guillain Barré, despite the time course, was foreseeable and necessarily their responsibility.
And the problem I see with the verdict is one thing only, which is I think this sets a very scary precedent. I absolutely believe that this couple should have received remuneration and absolutely deserves all of that. But the foreseeability element of this, and I think sometimes it's difficult if you're not in medicine to really understand how these things work. And the truth is, our immune systems, it makes no sense why one person's immune system starts to attack itself and 99.9999% of other people's doesn't. And so I hate that it happens when these things occur, but I think you're going to start assuming cause effect when it comes to these very remote, bizarre illnesses. You're going to see more scenarios where you're never going to be able to go out to dinner. Anyone, and that's a thing about medicine that is so difficult.
And I think that's the scary thing.
Foreseeability, and obviously if there was intent, if a restaurant knew they were serving bad food of any kind, well then they should be held liable and penalized. But in a case like this, you go out to eat, you're always taking a risk.
If you eat raw oysters, and I'm not saying you're taking a risk of Guillain Barré syndrome. Living your life, you are taking a risk of getting Guillain Barré syndrome. That's just the reality. I hate to admit it, but it's true. You live your life, and you're exposed to GI illnesses, respiratory illnesses, and a third of the time, people can get Guillain Barré syndrome. You have no idea why. But when you eat, if you're going to eat raw food, you're assuming a risk, no matter where you get it from. You're assuming a risk.
Sushi, you know, you can pick up parasites and worms. Same thing with meat, chicken, poultry. If it's not cooked properly, even you think you've cooked it properly, but there's potential there that bacteria can still be alive.
Yeah. But I think your point is really well taken, with a whole slew of autoimmune diseases where we see the immune system get revved up for reasons we don't understand, and we think there is some infectious trigger. That's very individual and based on a person's own biology.
You should have been their attorney, because that should have been the presentation for the defense there. Like, wait a second, it's his unique immune system that caused this reaction.
Right, and so just another nuance was apparently the insurance limit of this restaurant was $1 million, and
they're out of business.
No, the couple would have been happy to accept that, but the restaurant was not budging off of this $20,000, and that's why they litigated it out. And so I think there was a punitive element of the 6.7, just to send a message that you need to.
Well, that's an insurance policy, and that's where insurers. That's a whole different. That's a whole different ballpark there. And I'm okay with that part. Yeah. I'm okay if you try to shortchange someone and there's punitive element, I am fine with that. But again, Guillain Barré syndrome, it's one of those you learn in medical school and you hope you never have to diagnose it. It's exceedingly rare. I don't know if you all have seen cases of it, but it's not one of those where you know, I'm working a shift in the ER and, well, oh, you know what? You're feeling numbness and tingling in your feet. I bet this is Guillain Barré syndrome, but it is certainly something to think about if you develop numbness, weakness, particularly starting in the legs. And we call it, again, an ascending paralysis, and particularly if it occurs a few weeks after some sort of infection you've had. Just keep that in mind.